Well, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are joining us. It is my pleasure to welcome you to this Reverse the Red webinar today. My name is David Field, and I am truly honored to be the co-chair of Reverse the Red. I'm also here as a representative of WAZA. I'm the vice chair of WAZA, and in my day job, I'm here in Scotland at the wonderful Edinburgh Zoo. But today we are here to continue the celebration of the incredible conservation work that zoos and aquariums are achieving, the species impact that we are achieving towards reversing the decline of so many species. I hope so many of you, in fact, I hope all of you, were able to share in the wonderful, the incredible, the amazing World Species Congress, which took place just a few days, a week or so ago, this 24-hour virtual event, which truly celebrated the positive stories that are changing the world in terms of biodiversity, really putting that positive work forward. It was tremendous to see how many zoos and aquariums were celebrated, were shown, and that truly positive impact that our community is making on conservation. So today we are going to build on that excitement that has come from the World Species Congress. And just as an aside, very soon all the recordings and so many other information is going to come out of that World Species Congress as well. But today we want to take what we learned from that, continue to celebrate some of the incredible work that we've been doing, and hopefully to continue the inspiration, the excitement, the motivation for all of you to figure out how we're going to join together even more to impact on species conservation. Today, we're joined by an incredible panel of individuals, all who have contributed remarkable amounts to Reverse the Red and to species conservation already. And we want to use their knowledge and their skills and their experience to be able to demonstrate to you how you can actually contribute more. So I'm just merely here as host to hopefully make sure things are running smoothly. I would like to begin by introducing Judy Mann, who is the chair of the Conservation Environmental Sustainability Committee for WAZA and has been so integral to this whole Reverse the Red coalition and movement, and indeed to this incredible Reverse the Red short guide, which we're going to talk all about, and every one of us is going to wave it. But enough from me. Judy, welcome. Hello. Please take the floor.
Thank you so much, David, and hello to everyone who's joined us for this special session. And I just need to echo David's words in that we had the incredible Species Congress week before last, and it was amazing, and we were all feeling energized, but we've got to keep that momentum going. It can't just be a once-off peak, and that's what I'm going to be talking to you about today, is how you can keep it going in my short slot, because I'm going to introduce you to a tool, a resource that you can use, which will help you to really engage with Reverse the Red and to keep that momentum going. So this is our WAZA Reverse the Red short guide, how your zoo or aquarium or any of the other centers that you may represent can really join in our movement to reverse the red and halt the decline of biodiversity. Just a very quick bit of background. I think that you all know that in 2019, the IPBES published this very frightening document that said that basically about 1 million species were at risk for extinction. And this really galvanized lots and lots of media. So there was lots of media attention, articles all over the place. People were starting to talk about biodiversity. We've been talking about climate change for a long time, but the loss of biodiversity has been sort of happening in the background. And this really highlighted this with the general public. But I think that what's so important is that us in the World Zoo and Aquarium movement have been aware of this for a long time and have been actually working to address this critical threat, the critical threats facing biodiversity. I don't have to go through this with you. If you're here, you probably already know what these graphs show. The trends are frightening. We are facing an incredible loss of biodiversity across the planet. But we know this. In the zoo and aquarium world, this is our business. Species are what zoos and aquariums work with. We have two superpowers. The one is working with animals and plants, mostly animals, and the other is working with people. How do we really galvanize this action? Together with the IUCN Species Survival Commission, we signed a memorandum of agreement in 2018, and that really solidified the relationship between WAZA, the World Association of Zoos and Aquariums, and the IUCN Species Survival Commission. The aim of the MOU was really to say together, what can we do to reverse these trends in biodiversity? How can we work together to be more effective? And out of that, the amazing Jenny Gray and Kira Milleham, who were the starters and the brains behind this, they came up with Reverse the Red. It was a germ of an idea. And just to be able to see how this idea has grown has been amazing. What is Reverse the Red? Reverse the Red is a global movement that ignites strategic cooperation and action to ensure the survival of wild species and ecosystems. When you read this, you will see that every single word in that has been carefully chosen. Strategic cooperation. If we're going to reverse the red, if we're going to reverse the species decline, we have to work together, but we have to work strategically. We have to know what we're doing, why we're doing it, and we need to do it better and better. It's about action, and ultimately it's about the survival of wild species and ecosystems. And if we think about it, zoos and aquariums are perfectly positioned to do this. Zoos, aquariums, botanic gardens, conservation organizations, storytellers, everyone can come together to really support the mission behind Reverse the Red. The key partner are multiple partners, but the Convention on Biological Diversity is one of the kind of guiding documents, and especially if we look at Goal A and Target 4, which is to ensure urgent management actions to halt human-induced extinction, recovery and conservation of species, reduce extinction risk, and maintain and restore genetic diversity. And if you're from a zoo or aquarium, you know that you've probably been contributing to this already, but Target 4 is not the only one of the CBD targets that we're working with through zoos and aquariums, but we'll get onto that a little bit later. So just a quick introduction to WAZA. Everyone might not be aware of WAZA. WAZA is the World Association of Zoos and Aquariums, as I've said before. And our goal at WAZA is to be a globally recognized and trusted leader advancing conservation and animal welfare. That's what we're all about. And we have 4 strategic pillars. The one is transformative leadership. Through that, we're able to work on species impact. We have global members, and our reputation is critical. So those are just 4 of the pillars that WAZA uses in order to achieve its mission. But now getting on to more of the topic for today, and that is our short guide, which you can see here. This is the short guide to Reverse the Red. And the idea of this short guide came out of a lot of questions that the WAZA community was asking, like, okay, we've heard about this Reverse the Red. What is it? How can we get involved? Please give us something that is simple, easy to use, and that we can use not only for ourselves, but also for our staff. So give us something that's easy for us to communicate Reverse the Red and to inspire our teams to really use Reverse the Red more effectively. It was produced by the WAZA Reverse the Red Committee and the WAZA Conservation and Environmental Sustainability Committee. We sat together, and over many, many meetings, we really looked at how could we produce a guide that would be simple and easy to use, but that would have impact. So what does the guide consist of? Let's go through it. It's got 5 main sections, and I'm just going to run through each of these sections very quickly. The first one, what is reverse the red? And that's obviously, I've already given you a bit of an explanation, but just explaining what reverse the red is. Remember that a few years ago, reverse the red didn't exist. So we firstly need to make sure that everyone is on the same page as to what reverse the red is all about. The second section is probably the most in-depth and meaty section of the guide. It's WAZA's members' commitment to biodiversity. Now, you will recall that the conservation strategy, which was produced many years ago, started to really articulate the role of zoos and aquariums in supporting the Kunming biodiversity framework. And if you think through the evolution of zoos and aquariums, we have really started to focus more and more of our efforts on species conservation, on species survival. And I think that it's really in this nexus that the zoos and aquariums of the world play their greatest role in changing that trajectory, to being able to reverse the red. And we're able to do this in many, many ways. So we are experts in population management, small population management, experts in animal care and husbandry, as well as experts in many areas of field conservation. So our commitment to biodiversity is secure. We really have a commitment to biodiversity, and we're able to enact that in all sorts of areas of operation in our zoos and aquariums. Another thing that's really, really important when I talk about the superpowers of zoos and aquariums is that we have an incredible range of people that zoos and aquariums see every single year. So around the world, zoos and aquariums see millions and millions of people. And we've got the opportunity to share information with an incredibly large global audience. We can share information on the status of species, we can share information on the red list, and then we can also share information on what we as a community are doing to save species. And when I talk about we as a community, I'm talking about the IUCN Species Survival Commission, all of those groups of community of people, as well as the WAZA community. And together we can help to really sensitize the public to the biodiversity crisis, building that awareness that is so important if we want to take action. The fourth section is a vital section because we know that no organization on their own can conserve biodiversity and effectively reverse the red. We need to work together with others, and we need to work together with organizations that are maybe not necessarily the same as ours. We need to reach out across the various divides and amplify our collective impact. And this is where, if we look at Reverse the Red as a movement, and you're going to hear from some of the speakers later on today, they're going to talk about Centers for Species Survival. They're going to talk about these global initiatives. They're going to talk about how individuals, zoos and aquariums have actually put together centers that are communicating Reverse the Red effectively to their audiences. You're going to, in the guide, you can read about initiatives like Johannesburg Zoo that had a Reverse the Red Day event, through to some of the other facilities that have managed to actually create whole centers around Reverse the Red. You're going to hear about some of those initiatives today, and if you go into the guide, there are many more examples. The last section of the guide is critical because it gives you a checklist. So one of the things that we were very cognizant of when we put together the guide is that we wanted it to be easy to use. So everything is broken up into bite-sized chunks, but we also wanted to provide people with a roadmap. How do I start? What do I do? If I haven't had any engagement with Reverse the Red, what can I do? Who's done things similar to what I could possibly do, and how do I go about getting there? So this last section is really about taking action. It's about giving all of you a very step-by-step guide of what you can do to engage in Reverse the Red. And it's applicable across the scale of zoos and aquariums. Often a small zoo or aquarium will say, oh, I'm too small, I can't actually do anything. If you read the guide, which is freely downloadable on our website, if you read the guide, you'll see that there is something that every single zoo or aquarium can do, regardless of size. And that checklist at the back helps you to take action that is appropriate for the size of your facility and the capacity of your team. One of the important things about Reverse the Red is that we want to share stories of hope. We want to ignite and inspire people to take action. Conservation for so long has been surrounded with doom and gloom and a feeling that we're not getting it right. But in actual fact, when you start looking at it, there are so many examples where zoos and aquariums and in situ conservation organizations have worked together and they have been able to reverse the red. So throughout the guide, you'll be able to read about some of these inspiring stories of hope where reverse the red actually is possible in the field. This just shows you the writing team. So you can see the writing team at the top. We were very, very grateful to everyone who participated in writing, and then grateful to our reviewers who were able to look through the guide for us and to make it really, really appropriate for the audience. And then thank you to all the contributors, because all of the time that was spent on this was done in addition to our day jobs because of our passion for WAZA and our passion for Reverse the Red. The layout of the guide was beautifully done by Ink Design in Cape Town, and you can just see some of the pages, and you can see it's a colorful guide. It's easy to use. It really draws you in and makes you want to read more about what you can do, inspired by what others have done. So this is the website, reversethered.org. You can go onto the website for a lot more information about Reverse the Red, obviously, and also to download the guide. And if you have any questions about Reverse the Red, Paula Sedan is the WAZA Animal Welfare and Conservation Coordinator. Her email address is there, and she would be happy to answer your questions. So please have a look at the QR code, download the guide, use it, and we're happy to answer your questions. Thank you so much. And David, over to you.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Judy. It's a beautiful document. It's great. If you haven't read it, download it, get it. It's wonderful. But now let's go and make sure that we can actually hear about this Reverse the Red in action and how different organizations are putting it into place. But before I do, we have a number of presentations, but we do hope to have some time for questions at the end. So if you have questions, pop them into the Q&A section on the Zoom, and we'll get to those towards the end of the webinar. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Louise Enderby from Dublin Zoo, who will share more about the work of the Centre for Species Survival at the Dublin Zoo and how that links with Reverse the Red. Louise, welcome.
Hi, everybody. So my name is Louise Enderby. I'm at Dublin Zoo and CSS Ireland. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the work that we're doing here as the Centre for Species Survival. So the Centre for Species Survival at Dublin Zoo is a partnership between Dublin Zoo and the IUCN SSC, the Species Survival Commission. So this began in early February 2023. We signed an MOU with them, and then we actually officially launched the centre in November of 2023. And this is when I joined the team as the dedicated full-time species survival officer. So Dublin Zoo is one of only 18 centres in the world, and these are the centres you can see here. So being on a very small island in a very vast world, we work with this network quite readily. So we meet with everyone quite regularly, and quite interestingly, a lot of the other countries work in very similar ways that we do. So the work that we do as a centre at Dublin Zoo with our government in Ireland is actually very similar to how we work with, or how Brazil Centre works with their government as well. So we actually work and network with them quite regularly, which is quite interesting because they're such a large country compared to us, but it just shows just how valuable this network is. So Dublin Zoo set out a conservation master plan, which was set out in 2022, and it runs up until 2031. So it's over 10 years, this plan. And the conservation master plan aims to build on our conservation success to date, so globally and within Ireland. And we're hoping to transition from a zoo who does conservation to a zoo-based conservation organisation. And this sort of is underpinned by the Dublin Zoo 200 vision. So the Dublin Zoo 200 vision identifies strategic actions that are necessary to achieve our ambition of becoming a zoo-based conservation organisation of national and global significance. So we do quite a lot of work throughout the world, but we want to focus, especially with the centre, focusing on native Irish species. So with the centres throughout the world, lots of people have, or lots of centres have different focuses. So some are taxonomic focused, some are specialist focused, and some are regional focused. And we are a regional focus zoo. So it doesn't mean that we have a monopoly over everything in Ireland, but it does mean that we are focusing mainly on native Irish species. So within the Conservation Master Plan, there are some key areas which we want to sort of achieve in this timeline. Dublin Zoo will be celebrating its bicentennial anniversary, so its 200-year anniversary in 2031. So we are aiming to achieve these things by then. So some of the key areas, obviously, creating the National Centre for Species Survival, which we have done and launched in November of last year. Creating Ireland's first national wildlife biobanking hub, and political advocacy as well. So we want to make sure that we're working directly with the government to make policy changes to help reverse the decline of native Irish species and other species as well. So political advocacy, we want to have defined contributions in the 4th National Biodiversity Action Plan. And we succeeded in this, and we've actually been named in this National Biodiversity Action Plan, which we believe is a first. We believe we are the first centre to be named in a national document such as this. And this basically means that it's a lot easier for us to achieve things with the government. We're literally written into their documents, so they can't ignore us now if we want to participate in any sort of policy changes and legislation changes and things like that. So we want to Dublin Zoo has a commitment to developing public engagement initiatives to increase awareness of biodiversity loss and encourage action, so social action change as well. Again, establishing the National Wildlife Biobanking Hub, which will play an important role for safeguarding the genetic future of Ireland's wildlife. And then with the National Centre for Species Survival, this centre is a hub for our conservation work, and it gives us a capacity with Dublin Zoo's convening power to contribute to native species survival within Ireland. So as my role as a species survival officer, one of the main sort of targets that we want to achieve this year is providing the government with a gap analysis document. So this technical document will be looking at what species have been assessed or are assessed in Ireland. Are these assessments up to date? Do plans for these species exist? So is there any action plans or recovery plans? Are there any protections in place for these habitats or species as well? Some challenges we're expecting to face are invasive species versus naturalized species. As a small island, we do have quite a lot of invasive species, but some are classed as naturalized species. So where do we sort of draw the line in terms of conservation management? And this is where the larger network of the IUCN SSC comes in as well. So for example, we have the red deer, which is a native Irish species. And this map has been produced by the National Biodiversity Data Centre, which is funded largely by the government here in Ireland. Now, we also have the fallow deer, which is an invasive species. It's classed as an invasive species according to some of the government documents. But when you look into the red list of terrestrial mammals in Ireland, it's actually classed as a native animal and it's classed as least concern. So it's been red listed in Ireland. And this isn't the only naturalised or invasive species that has this. We also have the case of the black ship rat or the brown rat. So the brown rat is classed still as an invasive species and it has not been assessed in Ireland, but the black rat has been classed as vulnerable in Ireland. And interestingly, it is an invasive species, but because it was brought in before 1500, it's classed as naturalized. So these are all questions that this gap analysis aims to put to the government to say, what does this mean for conservation action within Ireland? One thing that we've been recently involved in is reversing the decline of Ireland's wading birds. So there's a QR code there if anybody does want to have a look at that, to take you to a website to find out more information. But just briefly, it is a 25 million euro European innovative partnership project, which is a collaboration of various governing bodies, NGOs and zoos in Ireland to save Ireland's breeding waders. So there's the red list of birds of conservation concern in Ireland, and it's shown that there's been a 50% decline over the last 40 years for 5 of the 6 species written below there. 90% decline for lapwing and curlew just in the last 20 years. So our island's breeding waders are really, really struggling. So this is a pinnacle point to sort of save these birds. So organisations such as Dublin Zoo and Fota Wildlife Park, as zoos, we have facilities in place for incubating, rearing and hatching eggs of birds of all kinds, but breeding waders especially. So combining expertise of zoo professionals in the area of bird rearing will be essential through this project. Now, this funding has largely come from MPWS, which is our governing body, but some of the funding has also come from the Department of Agriculture as well. So this is a massive milestone for Ireland's breeding waders, and it's something that we're very excited about to be a part of. Some other upcoming projects that we're going to be a part of, we are going to be hosting a captive ex situ breeding population of white-clawed crayfish here in Ireland. There currently isn't anything going on for white-clawed crayfish in Ireland. There are a few similar projects in the UK, so we are connecting with lots of partners throughout the world and experts in the UK as well to set up this facility here at Dublin Zoo. And we want to propose to the government that we will do a full species recovery programme for them with future translocations of this species as well. Some other interesting things that we're going to be working on is the amphibians in Ireland. So a lot of people might not know that Ireland only has 3 native amphibians. So this is really sort of pinnacle when we talk about the chytrid fungus. So currently Ireland is chytrid fungus free, but the chytrid fungus is moving its way around the world, and we want to ensure that Ireland remains chytrid fungus free, especially because we only have 3 native species of amphibians. And again, this is through work with the IUCN SSC, specialist groups and conservation planning specialist group as well. So there's 2 QR codes there if you want to learn more about the centres, all 18 centres, including ourselves. The top QR code will take you to that, and then the bottom one will just take you to our conservation master plan if you want to learn a little bit more about the work that we're doing to reverse the decline of species. Thank you.
Thank you, Louise. It's incredible, and seeing how much work has been done in such a short space of time just emphasises how amazing and brilliant it is for these Centres for Species Survival to drive forward such incredible work. Okay, so next we'll move on to Tim Shikora from Zoo Schwerin, and Tim will talk to us about the role of engaging communities in Reverse the Red and a remarkable Red List Centre at Tim's Zoo. Welcome, Tim.
Yeah, thank you, David. Yeah, well, actually, we were very surprised that we ended up in this amazing document because we actually focus on the Red List and not yet on Reverse the Red. So now we can say we start a little bit earlier to explain by explaining our visitors first what is about the red, and later on we will certainly explain what's all about Reverse the Red. So I've just share my screen. I have some pictures hidden somewhere here. Okay, here we go. So as you could see before, just in my background, here's our Red List Center. In German, it's Rote Liste Zentrum. Red List Center is kind of obvious, the translation. The thing is, basically we wanted to build a new lion enclosure. And we did the usual planning, and at one point we discussed what we want to present our visitors. What is the message we want to bring in? And we ended up just talking about lions was a little bit too thin for us, and we wanted a bit more. And we came to the point that maybe it would be good to explain the IUCN Red List scale, because in almost every zoo you find the scale on the signs at the enclosures, but no one actually explains what is behind the scale. So the idea was born to give this house the theme of the Red List and explain the scale. And what we the main idea is to have for each category, for each of the 8 categories, one species representing that very category. So this is an insight into the visitor room. Actually, it's not very large, but it still looks a bit smaller here in this picture. So you enter this room. On your left-hand side, you see the inside of the lion enclosure. On the right side, for a yellowback duiker. And everything is kept in the typical IUCN red list design. And this is another point we wanted to do, is we wanted to offer a platform for partners and not to bring our zoo, our design and logo in front, but rather we step a little bit back and present our partners. To underline the point that we as a zoo are one player in a big global network, and really to show that we are proud to have partners, and we have partners and we need these partners to do our own work, and that the red list is an important tool for us to decide what species we have in our animal collection. And it's not just a random animal collection we have, but it's scientific based and part of a whole, of a bigger idea within the global conservation. So if we, well, it's a bit slow. So if you look to the left, you see the lion enclosure, the inside part. Of course, we have an outside enclosure as well, which is about 3,500 meters square. If you look close on the very left button, you can see one of our lionesses. So what we decided for the Asian lions, so this species represents the category endangered. And we realized that it's so easy to explain our visitors the category endangered with a fascinating species, of course, and they can relate this category to a certain species. They know why this species is in this category. We explain what needs to happen that the species could be uplisted or downlisted. And later on the tour through the zoo, whenever they encounter another species that is endangered, they can remember what is behind this meaning species is endangered. And this is something we do with 8 species. Of course, the lion is the flagship species here, and it's attractive for any visitor who is not interested in any themes or so, but they get the message. And we have a wide range, and my favorite is the Patula snail, of course. And it turned out that, just skip a bit, so it's not on this slide, but we have 3 terraria. And one of these is for, not on this picture, but one is for the Patula snails. And it turned out as soon as we really talk to our visitors, we randomly take them to the terrarium, explain the story behind the Patula snail, and it's extinct in the wild now, and what we are doing, and that we have a huge percentage of the whole world population here in our little zoo, and we take them into the breeding station as well. And afterwards, they realize the concept of a zoo and a managed program, how it works, because we have a little tiny species. And what we can do in our zoo is really to protect, to save a whole species, of course, with the support of other zoos. But it's more precise than if you start talking about lions or elephants in a breeding program. It's too abstract. And here is very practical and easy to follow. Works very well. Yeah, and so we have the different categories we can explain. And of course, we do not expect our visitors to be able, after the visit, what is every category and what's behind it, and what are the factors for changing categories and so on. The main goal we want to achieve is that the visitors understand behind the animal collection is more than a random choice. There is a scientific approach, there's a scientific tool that helps us to decide for species, and that we are just a small part of a big network. And that is really something that, yeah, the visitors can remember. It really works. And still, they cannot explain the list, but it's okay. They know there is a list, and there is science behind it. And we earned a lot more of trust, I think, I would say. And they believe us that we do proper work, scientific work, and we do not just present some random species. Yeah. And another side effect, it turned out that obviously we are the only zoo that is presenting the red list or the categories in this style, and we had a lot of media attention. So it's another nice effect for us that turned out that the national media was interested in this concept, and we had a lot of TV broadcasting shows here, and even though it's like 2 years old now, every now and then someone comes to me and asks about the news of the Red List Center, and I heard of your famous Red List Center and so on. That's spectacular, and it's really, yeah, it was just a short idea while in the morning, just in the shower, and I said, oh, maybe we do it like this, and then it turned out a really good thing. And it has a big influence on our future planning because, as I said, it's just on the entrance, and it's a keystone to our storytelling now. So we change our storyline, or we're going to change our storyline. And of course, what starts with a Red List Center will end up with a Green List Forum or something like this, where we, in the end, try to give positive feedbacks and play the story of Reverse the Red and what our visitors can actually do to support Reverse the Red. Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. That's fantastic. I just love that whole concept that you've gone from the Red List Center to now you're talking about a Green List Forum. That's just, we look forward to you coming back to the next webinar to tell us all about the Green List Forum. There we go. Okay, I'm just going to remind people again that we will have time for some questions at the end. I'm going to love to find out about how impactful that Red List Center has been with public. So please put your questions into the Q&A function on the Zoom site. So we now want to move to the next element of this Reverse the Red short guide, which is very much around amplifying success. So we're delighted to focus on a particular case study with the Campbell's alligator lizard, which is led by Oklahoma City Zoo. And we have Brad Locke with us from Oklahoma City Zoo. Welcome, Brad. And this is done in collaboration with the community partner in Guatemala. And we have Monica Torres here very early. Welcome, Monica, from Fundasqua. So please, Brad, Monica, take it away.
Oh, great to be here, and it's a great start to it. And of course, the Species Congress was wonderful last couple of weeks ago. And so I'm really proud to be part of this program and for you to hear about Monica, she is the director of what we call Conservation of Bronia, and I'm going to let her take it away.
Hello, everyone. So today we will explore the amazing conservation journey of Campbell's alligator lizard, Abronia campbelli, a species once at the brink of extinction, but thanks to the support of community of zoos and aquariums, we have brought this species back from the edge. And not only that, but we have been able to set it into a promising path into the downlisting of the species in the IUCN Red List. First, I want everyone to get to know Abronia campbelli. This is a small arboreal lizard, is diurnal, and you can distinguish it from other species because it has a group of modified scales in its head that looks like little horns, and also a long, strong, prehensive tail. This makes this species look like a miniature dragon, which I think it's very cool. And also, the species is a Guatemalan endemic. This species only live in a mountain complex that is of the size of only 100 square kilometers. In this area, the species live in the hard-to-reach canopy of the pine oak forest, especially in oak trees, because these are the trees that harbor all the epiphyte plants that are the ones that compromise the species' microhabitat. The species has been considered at the brink of extinction since its description 31 years ago. And that is because of extreme habitat loss. 17 years after the original description of the species, our conservation team rediscovered the species, only to realize that the species had been given up for lost by the scientific community. It had been overlooked by national conservation efforts, and it was deeply feared by local people. But it was also basically unknown to the world. At this point, we have three things that we were certain. The species still persisted. It was critically endangered due to habitat loss. And the species definitely didn't have room for another 17 years of indifference. And that's how our work started. We started with a lot of research on the species. We needed to know the species' natural history, how it was distributed, how it used the habitat, its home range, reproduction, ethology. But we also needed to really understand the conservation context of the species, which led us to identify three main threats for the species, being the main one, habitat loss, but also fear-based killing and illegal trafficking of the species. Facing this, we started analyzing habitat loss, which actually had destroyed basically 97% of the original habitat of the species. This is two different agriculture practices, which means that only 3% of the natural forest remains today. Most of the remaining habitat, the one that is very degraded, consists on isolated mature trees. This means that a lot of forest, that the one that you're looking on your left, is being converted in what you look in the right. This means that we don't only have a decreased population, but that many of the remaining population is in these isolated trees where natural dispersion and sexual selection and behavior cannot occur. So this means that we have been working not only to have more habitat, but also to fight fragmentation and enhance connectivity. Facing these problems, we started our conservation actions, which started with a lot of awareness. We really needed to construct a team of local people. We don't want to be the main conservationists. We want them to be the protagonists of this conservation action. So we have been working for over a decade on awareness activities to demystify the species, to curb illegal trafficking, but especially to also engage people as the main actors in our conservation strategies. We have worked with men, with women, with kids, with everyone in the area, and for that we have used different strategies, from workshops to very formal meetings to house-to-house meetings, and different material, even including a children book activity, so children can learn about the species and the habitat they share with Abronia campbelli. We have been able to see during the last decade how a cultural shift is happening, and how people that used to destroy the habitat and used to kill this species because they were very afraid of it have changed, and now they not only know the species but also appreciate it and actually are working together to conserve the species. We have also partnered with local authorities, and we have even coordinated covert operation to stop illegal traffic. So as you can see, just with awareness, we have done a lot of work to stop two of the three threats for the species, which is fear-based killing and the illegal traffic. But our main conservation work is focused on habitat. We also had to do a lot of research for this part of the project, as this is not a commercial species, is a native oak species of the area. So we had to do research to know how to reproduce it in our nurseries. Our nurseries started with 4,000 trees, and now we are reaching 40,000 annual trees, which we are very proud of where we are now, right now. We work a lot of habitat protection, so we are teaching people about the importance of the remaining forest and how unreplaceable it is. But we're also working a lot of habitat restoration, which we do by collaborating directly with landowners. We go to the land plot and we make tailored habitat conservation plan that is going to make habitat restoration compatible with land use. That means that we are maintaining livelihoods along as we are maintaining conservation efforts, which is what has been key for our project, as we are not fighting against people, but working with them and finalizing the paradigm that human development and conservation cannot go hand in hand. And all of this work we do with a strong focus on connectivity. Here are some pictures of the people we work with. These include communities, farmers, families, and local companies. This habitat restoration program is also completed with a rescue program. As I was saying before, we have a lot of isolated trees. So what we do is that we rescue gravid females from these trees, and we rescue the neonates that they have. So we are able to liberate offspring in high quality habitat and actually give them an opportunity to be part of the functional population of the species. This has led to results along the years, which are a lot of research that we have combined with local knowledge. So we have the foundation for all the strategies with scientific information. We have seen the cultural shift of all the communities that live surrounding and within the habitat of Abronia campbelli. And we have even stopped illegal trafficking with a lot of local people giving like calls to the police and to us to stop illegal traffic on its tracks. And this has led also to working along with people and their land according to their needs to plant over 136,000 native trees that they are going to mature, and they will compose 1.5 square kilometers. That is going to be 1/3 of the habitat when these trees get mature. We have teamed up with 12 communities, over 20 private farms, and over 200 families, and rescued over 300 neonates. But we are most excited about the conservation plan that we have worked together with local people, and that is to upscale our efforts like never before to actually downlist the species. And this is through creating and protecting enough habitat for the species through land acquisition, habitat restoration, but also through another layer of habitat restoration that includes microhabitat. So we're not only thinking about the oak trees, but we're also thinking on the epiphytes that we will be also restoring on the canopy. So we are very proud of all the work that we have done. We know that we are able to do it because of the community of Susan aquariums that have made this possible over the years, but we are mainly excited about all the work that we have ahead, and we have very high hopes for the conservation of Campbell's alligator lizard. That will be all.
Monica, thank you. That's fabulous. Brad, is there anything you'd like to add?
No, I think she did a great job. I think the one thing for me is that we've gone from, which is very exciting for me, is we've gone from species focus to range-wide focus and bringing that whole thing together. And then, of course, working with the communities, like Monica said, all subsets of communities surrounding Campbell's alligator lizard. Which I think the most important part is and I think is what we all are getting to, is listening to the communities and listening to their needs, because if you don't do that, you're going to fail. If you just want to separate things, then all you're going to do is fail. It all needs to be integrated. And then one of my sayings, which I believe very clearly and believe in a lot, and I hear you guys talking about all the time, our goal in this project is to provide a healthy, intact, viable habitat for this species, which is going to help a lot of other species, but they know how to be Campbell's alligator lizards. We just need to give them a place to do that. And I think that's where that's our main focus, with all the other things that she said. And I would just like to tell her, in light of all these other people, I'm very proud to have worked with her, very proud to know her, and feel blessed that I'm able to work with her in this project.
Well, that's tremendous, and I think we all celebrate that too. That's wonderful. And I think you very clearly demonstrated that power of collaboration and that power of partnership, which I think we've seen right the way through all of these presentations, whether that's collaboration, engagement with partners in country, whether it's about through Tim's work with engagement with the communities within who are coming to the zoo. We hear it from Louise's work with the CSS about engagement with and collaboration with government. So collaboration partnership is so absolutely key to the success of all of these projects in terms of Reverse the Red. And it's wonderful to see success and downlisting species, because that's what it's all about. So I'm just looking, and we do have a little while for questions. If any questions want to come in, you're all being very, very quiet out there as panelists. So we invite all the panelists back onto screen if they're there. And very happy to take any questions from the floor or from the virtual world out there, but you've all done a remarkable job. Tim, I just wanted to ask you, if I may, in terms of the communities themselves, have you actually, you said a wonderful word that, or statement, that public don't necessarily fully understand the red list, but they know there is a list and they know there is science behind it, which I think is fantastic. But have you actually done any measures of the engagement impact in terms of your center?
No, actually not, unfortunately. So this is something we need to do, and yeah, actually it's for next season we plan to develop a little bit to have more reliable data how the impact actually is. So now it's more in discussion with our visitors or just anecdotes or something like this. We realize they are really focused on that, and yeah, what people say nowadays. Yeah.
I think it's coming. This measurement element of what we do is so important. And you know, within all of these Reverse the Red, we're looking at some major measurements of species impact, of reversing the decline, but understanding what we're doing, proving what we're doing, and proving the success is so huge. And I guess that's important for you, Louise, in the Centre for Species Survival, about actually demonstrating quite clearly that species impact. I'm guessing that helps with government funding, etc.
Yeah, it does. In terms of sort of like interacting and sort of collaborating and making sure that we're sort of detailing every sort of step of it, it does help with government funding. One thing that Ireland is very good at is head starting funds and sort of pilot schemes. But in terms of sort of long-term management plans, it's something that is missing, and sort of getting that out there to the public is and just sort of general people who might not be aware is really important, so they know that yes, there might be money going out sort of left, right, and centre to different projects, but what is the impact of that money going into those projects, and what can we be doing in this sort of differently and better with the government's backing as well.
Excellent. Oh, I see one question that's come in, and it's, how can one start and plan for research around a species in a landscape that was once a fully fledged park that has been run down, but now has a new management system in place that started a few years ago? Wow, that's a whole lecture in itself. But actually, Judy, I'm going to turn to you a little bit, because doesn't that encapsulate the whole element of planning collaboration of what Reverse the Red can provide?
I think, thank you, and thanks for that good question, because if we are at that starting point, it's a wonderful opportunity to sort of put into place the guidelines that we'll be given. So the Conservation Planning Specialist Group, which is part of the IUCN, has something that they call Assess, Plan, Act. And I think that for you at the starting point, you're going to start off with that assessment stage. What do you have from a species point of view? What do you have from a landscape point of view? What staff do you have? What resources do you have? Where do you need help? So at that assessment phase, you're really coming to grips with the baseline. Where are we right now? What do we have? And then you can start to think about planning, and then only start to think about acting. I think so often with conservation is we jump into the acting stage and we start trying to do stuff without taking those first steps to assess and to plan before we get into the action stage. The Reverse the Red guide will give you some help and assistance, but it also has a lot of links in it. So in the guide are lots and lots of links to other resources that you can use, which will help you, particularly at the beginning, get things going. And I think that just also talks to something that Monica was talking about. Monica's program had a huge number of engagements with the communities, and Brad stressed the importance of working with the communities. And I think that if you're at a starting point in terms of your particular project, engage with your communities as much as you engage with your species, because the species will probably be fine if you just let them get on with it. It's the communities that we really need to work with. So engage with your communities right at the very beginning.
That's super. Thank you so much, Judy. So look, that brings us really just almost to the very end of the session. I'd quickly invite any of the panelists, if they wanted to make a final remark around the impact of Reverse the Red on them, please feel free. Otherwise, Brad, did you want to mention a final comment?
I just want to echo, I think, what Judy said a little bit, or the question of how you get started. And I can tell my story a little bit, very short.
Has to be very short.
Basically, I was working at a zoo that happened to have a species that I knew very little about. And I was invited to Guatemala as now an expert, because we had that species, and went to the meeting in Guatemala. And it was something I could get my head around. It's hard for me to get my head around saving elephants and needing hundreds of thousands of square kilometers potentially. But Abronia have naturally very small habitats, very small ranges. I could get my head around that. And so being part of that initial group, that's when I said, I'm going to start helping, start writing grants, start trying to get support, and then just became part of that group. And then we just went on from there. And so I agree that planning and all that stuff is extremely important to do first, so that you know where you're going. But don't think that you have to get to the point of some of these programs that are already 10 years, 20 years, 50 years down the line. Just get excited and start getting participation in those groups that are doing something. You can make a big impact.
That's wise words, Brad. Very wise words. And that last chapter in this guide is about taking action. So make sure you please one thing from this webinar, go take a look at this. Go to the Reverse the Red website. You'll see all of this information. It only leaves me to thank all of our panelists for their incredible work, their incredible contribution. Thank you all for attending. Go save species. See you soon. Bye-bye.